What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and this video is going to be recapping the 10-year anniversary of Darkest Dungeon. That was a few days ago, about 4 or 5 days ago now, as of this recording, and we're going to go through the Red Hook statement, just, remember the good times and such. And they also had a video, which I'm not going to repost as like a reaction, because I don't want to deal with, copyright, but it was really humbling to go back and look at that kind of stuff, what the community's done, and reading this statement and everything. So we'll talk about the anniversary. I'll include some community news. We have stuff on the board game, so big news on the Darkest Dungeon board game in that front, and Darkest Dungeon 2 modding. Some of you may already know if you're really plugged into everything, but a lot of you don't. We'll now start with the statement from the Red Hook founders Chris Barassa and Tyler Sigmund. I'll read it to you so you don't have to read it yourself. When we founded Red Hook, our goal was to support ourselves while making a game of our own dreams. Simple to describe, but not easy. We knew the difficulty, of course, because we had previously worked on other projects at other companies. So before Red Hook was founded, Chris and Tyler, I believe, had worked together in the past on 1 or 2 titles, but they both had a lot of time in the game industry before making their own game company. And so they already had a ton of experience just working in the industry, especially with each other too. So that's why they both came together and made Red Hook. We'd seen our share of canceled games, fail games, or games that were good but couldn't find a large audience. Now, last one is a bit tragic for a lot of indie games because there are so many amazing indie games out there that, I've seen quite a few myself. I've been in a privileged position with content that I get offered, keys, demos, all that, sometimes sponsors, and I've played so many games. I think my Steam library has over like 600 at this point, and most of it I didn't pay for, meaning that there are just tons of games that, like the core is great, but, it's just lacking a little something to get it to the point where it becomes like more mainstream and picks up an audience. So there's a lot of passion projects that unfortunately never quite make it. And that's just going to get worse with time, the bigger the industry gets and the more people getting into game dev. Doesn't mean no one should try it though. 10 years ago, on January 19, 2016, Darkest Dungeon was, quote, completed and released as 1.0. It was immediately clear that we had bottled lightning. Back in the pre-release days, we didn't dare to entertain the fantasy that our work would resonate to the extent it has, or find such a passionate and creative audience. But it did. There's something really special about Darkest Dungeon, especially like back in the early days, like mid to end of early access, and just how it kind of took the streaming space. The game, as always, like both games have always been fortunate, and this was probably the intention, or it just happened to end up that way, but the games are easy enough to follow as a viewer that even if you don't play it, you can see the health bars, the stress bars. You can tell when someone, is in trouble. You hear bells for death's door checks and all that. So, like, even if you don't know much about the game, if you have any cursory knowledge of just RPGs in general, you can figure out what's happening after watching for a little bit. So it made it a great streaming game because it had high stakes. There was permadeath on heroes, and it was just fun to watch, and streamers would rage, understandably. So it really did capture its own space in a way that just seemed unlikely at the time. The other thing I want to echo here is that the community around Darkest Dungeon 1 and 2 is just one of the most insane and awesome communities I have ever seen or been a part of. The amount of art that comes out of this community, I guess it's because Chris himself is such a fantastic artist, but there's just so much just genuine love and art that comes out of this community that it's staggering and it's beautiful. There's been things like the Darkest Dungeon fanzine, which my irresponsible ass didn't cover, but I should have, and maybe I still will, who knows. Red Hook themselves released a video following this statement, showing a lot of the awesome stuff that's been done. And it's not just the art people, draw with their hands. As amazing as that is, there's obviously other things in terms of art, and we've seen no shortage of it in Darkest Dungeon. There have been several things like crochets, plushies, sculpting, tattoos, 3D figures, and even, animated shorts. There are some really good ones. Omnipeasant and Yellow Pie come to mind. And finally, something that is honestly incredible, and I have to check back in with how well it did on YouTube, but last year or 2 years ago, there was a group of amateur filmmakers that made like a 5-minute Darkest Dungeon 1 video where, they fight some cultists and save each other, and I was almost moved to tears. It was so awesome to see something like that with so much love put into it. So yeah, the community around this series is nothing short of spectacular. Continuing with the statement, as we reflect upon this 10-year run, 11 if you include early access, the fullness of time has made us realize that connecting with you, the audience, proved to be one of the most fulfilling and thrilling parts of the entire dungeon crawl. Thanks to you and your perseverance, the game wasn't just a flash in the pan. That's really good to acknowledge the audience like that, because they, it's a game dev can make a game, but how long it lives and how it's remembered and all that, that's on the audience. And Darkest Dungeon really just landed, even though the genre it's in is kind of niche and it's like Lovecraftian body horror. It just spawns so many things. People played these games and decided to go into game dev, or people spent years perfecting their art because they love drawing stuff from this series. So there's just a lot of fantastic things about it. And after DD1 stopped getting its work, after they were finally done with it after Butcher Circus, it still continued to get mods to this day. Some of the biggest mods the game will ever see have not been finished yet. They're still in the works, and I'm talking about Black Reliquary and Project Iron Crown. Those two are just so huge in scope, with a massive, amazing, and talented team of modders and artists that, they're gonna feel like new games when they hit, and that kind of stuff is exciting. It's still happening 10 years later. This game about resilience showed its own resilience. A hard scrabble and mean game about making the best of a bad situation created an incredibly good situation for us and the development team. We're so grateful for everyone who has ever engaged with Darkest Dungeon over the years, whether by playing, making art, filming Let's Plays and guides, getting yourself tattooed, writing, posting, commenting, and of course, critiquing. And yes, we love reading about the occasional party wipe due to spiders. Patently unfair, but always fun. I think if you brought up a statistic, the amount of heroes that have died in Darkest Dungeon collectively over the years, I would say the level 0 party fighting spiders in the ruins is going to be chief among them, if not the highest, just because spiders are pretty brutal when you have no gear and no upgrades, especially early. What I do like reading here is when they talk about that they were okay with being critiqued. This is what I had said before, because this is something I'll talk about later at the end of the video, but as far as critiquing goes, Red Hook are adults, and they understand that they're also trying to make a good product that has to be purchased and consumed. So there is a place for having the vision. There's also a place for maybe setting the vision and all that aside just a little bit, or tweaking it so it's more fun for people to play and they can keep buying your products. And that's a tough compromise to make, I understand, but one of the things that happened is I kind of got pilloried for making a lot of critiques, especially recently, and seeing this, because I knew this is how Red Hook was. They can, take criticism. This is reassuring to read. Whether you've been with us since the days of Kickstarter, or just completed the tutorial yesterday, hopefully Reynold and Dismas both survived, we're happy you're here, and stay tuned, we're not out of the dungeon yet. I wasn't ready to read that last sentence when I first read it, because I read this, a few days ago, because we're not sure what this means. Obviously, they're still going with Darkest Dungeon stuff, but is it a new game? Is it a spin-off? What else? And at the time, you know, immediately when this dropped, it was like, who knows? Because they're hiring currently. Red Hook is hiring for a new project that is on Unreal 5. If you don't know, Darkest Dungeon 2 is made on Unity, which means anything that they're making on UE5 is likely either a new game or some other project, or could be even something like Dead by Daylight. Who knows? Reading that they're not done with the dungeon, though, because it seemed like they were, and there's another point of contention where it did seem like they were done, because in the past, Red Hook has talked about 5-year cycles. They had a 5-year cycle with DD1. They talked about a 5-year cycle with DD2, and it's been radio silence for several months now. You know, usually they give us something to look forward to. It'd be like, you know, on my channel, when I was fortunate enough to interview Chris and Tyler, they talked about a DLC or an addition to the game that'll dramatically change the way it's played. That turned out to be Kingdoms, and that came about a year and a half later. And during Kingdoms, we were always waiting for the remaining hero balances, which we got in the Steadfast Stewards updates. So there's always something on the horizon, even when they went silent. This has been the only period of time in Darkest Dungeon 2's life where there were no announced plans and no communication. That's just how Red Hook is. They like to show up when they have everything ready to impress you. That's just how they've always been. And all the other signs for end of development were kind of there. We lost our beloved Wayne June about a year ago, this month actually. And between Wayne's passing, which meant it's harder to make new content because you don't have your beloved narrator. Yes, they could get a new one, but obviously Wayne was so impactful to the first 2 games, including the success of them. And this is something I've had to argue with people about, but there are people that kind of diminish Wayne's importance, especially in the first game, saying, oh, he's just a narrator, and it's like, you kind of don't get it. Wayne, as the ancestor, was so powerful and had so much gravitas that Red Hook kind of changed what they were doing to keep him there. The story is that Wayne was originally there to narrate the first trailer, but after they got the recording from Wayne, because Wayne had a ton of experience doing audio voice work before, he narrated Lovecraft stories as audio novels, so he exactly knew the genre and how to say it, if that makes sense. He had so much experience already speaking in the theme and reading it and understanding it that he was just the perfect choice to get. Also, if you look for Wayne on YouTube, listen to him do Shadow over Innsmouth and Mountains of Madness. Both those audiobooks are, like, all of his work's amazing, but those are my 2 favorites, and they are so just incredible. I always love when I get a chance to re-listen to them. And so Wayne was only there to do 1 trailer before, and instead Wayne ended up transitioning to become the narrator for the first game entirely. As that narrator, he was so impactful that everyone always remembers most of the lines from Darkest Dungeon 1, all the quotable stuff like overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer, many fall in the face of chaos, but not this one, not today. Just tons of impactful lines from his voice work, and that transcended the game. Wayne, in the first game, as the ancestor, with the popularity of the first game, had streamers getting custom voice lines from him. I remember Criparian had one about the $5 club in Wayne's voice that Crip used for probably a couple years, and I'm sad if he actually got rid of it, but yeah, so Wayne was doing voice work for streamers and their notifications. The Ancestor is a Dota 2 commentator as a voice pack. And I'm bringing all of this up because when I say that his passing was a big deal for Darkest Dungeon 2, it's not just so much, oh, they can get a new narrator. Obviously they can, but the series is partly built, or has partly built its success on his back. There's a lot of creative effort from everyone involved at Red Hook, obviously, and I'm not diminishing that, but Wayne was a massive part of it. So with Wayne gone, new content became harder, and behavior buying Red Hook kind of felt like, maybe they might shift priorities. Behavior might take them off and go say, we want you to do this. And even though Red Hook's autonomous, as well as I said before, there's just no communication, there's nothing on the horizon, so we just didn't know. But now we're not out of the dungeon. About 3 days ago, there was a picture circulating of SteamDB, which is a website that tracks all things related to Steam games, including prices, patches, and player counts. In the DD2 side of the backend, there was an update on the DLC for the game. There was nothing else to be gleaned from it. It didn't say what it was. It just said Darkest Dungeon 2 DLC updated 3 days ago. That means that Red Hook put something in privately 3 days ago that no one knows what it is yet. It may be DLC, which would be really exciting because this game hasn't gotten anything for a little bit. People are a little bit worried it's going to turn out to be the same type of thing as Darkest Dungeon 1, where we thought we were getting a DLC years later codenamed Rat Dungeon, which turned out to be the 64-bit update of the game. The hype around the rumor was justified because the person that saw the Red Hook booth in Korea at the convention and got confirmation they were there was the source of Rat Dungeon. When Red Hook was giving a presentation on their game as well, they were talking about DLC coming up, and in it they had Abomination, the Kingdom's release date being January 27th, both of which became true, and something for DD1 that said Rat Dungeon. When asked, the Red Hook employee responded that it's DLC. Could have been a miscommunication, could have been a lot of things, but it's not like the hype wasn't there, and the rumor didn't have any standing. It just happened to be something else after everything came to light. Hey y'all, it's Editing Shuff here. And when I got to this part of the video about the board game, I realized that I spent over an hour talking about it between what I was saying and what this article contains. I will link it below if you want to read it yourself. The important thing is that, yes, Mythic went bankrupt, they crashed and burned, the board game's never getting finished, and a criminal investigation found no evidence of wrongdoing, which means either it was incompetence on the largest scale possible, or those fine detectives weren't doing their job correctly. I'm gonna go with the former. Fear not though, noble viewer. The files for the board game were sent to backers, and backers only, so if you ever wanted to download stuff to complete the rest of your game, you could. But someone immediately leaked all of the files online anyway, so I'm sure you can find them if you really tried. Just know that if you do, you can't print them and sell them yourself. That is still copyrighted property. Don't be that person. Don't be a dick. One very awesome benefit, however, is that after the files came out, someone within only a few weeks' time was able to make all of the files into a tabletop sim version, because Mythic already made like a demo version, but this person took all the files and made the entire game, so everything's in it. All parts, all expansions, Wave 1, Wave 2, it's all there. So if you have Tabletop Simulator, you can find this mod and download it for yourself, and you can just play it at your leisure with your buddies. Or solo, I'm not judging. Since this part of the video took so long, I elected to basically remove the entire thing, and afterwards, the video kind of jumps around just a little bit because I ended up chopping a lot of it out because it just took too much time. So now we can get to the next part, which is the mods for Darkest Dungeon 2, like Musketeer. Other good news in the Darkest Dungeon scene is that we're starting to see more character mods actually working and releasing in Darkest Dungeon 2. This was going to always be a major hurdle just because 3D models are a little more difficult than animating 2D sprites with spine. And so the big difficulty's always been getting someone to do a model and being able to paint it and being able to animate it and stuff, and that's just to get it to move and not crash the game. We've seen a couple so far. We've seen some PNG character mods. We've seen one that came out recently was Hornet from Hollow Knight and Silksong. They made a character mod for her. 2 weeks ago, a week ago, we got Omen Seeker from Spurple and a couple other people. Again, the names escape me. I'm sorry. I'm just doing it for brevity. Not to be a dick. But yeah, so there's a lot of hard-working people on these mods right now. The ones that are probably the most anticipated are Shieldbreaker and Musketeer. So the two main people involved are Gvoz Doter, hopefully I'm saying that right, and Peacekeeper. There's a few other people that I've heard that have joined up to help them make and animate these things. And I know that myself and Thick are gonna pitch some kit ideas soon. Hopefully, it's, you know, I gotta actually sit down and do it, but that's the good news, right? Is we're getting character mods, and hopefully that'll start attracting more people into modding DD2, because as far as I'm concerned, looking at this Musketeer, just with how well she's painted, she looks a little more shadowy than the other characters, but other than that, she's like, she looks official, right? She looks like Chris painted this himself, and I don't know if he does the models too, but she looks amazing. And so that's why Gvoz and Peacekeeper teamed up, is because I guess they each provide something that the other one can't do, so they're working together, because Peacekeeper was doing Shieldbreaker and Gvoz was doing Musketeer, and so they got together to work with other people too, and Musketeer is the first one that they decided to finish. And so this is about a month after, about 3 weeks after she was fully modeled and painted, and now we're already at animations, and you can see the animations are gonna be a little choppy, but like, it's a great step. So it's the idle pose, and she looks like she fits right in, you know, kind of bobbing around like everyone else. Checks the rifle, so she's not just doing the same thing. I like the ready pose right here. And then she's got her side piece, which she had in DD1. She had a sidearm. And I really like that they did kind of a little animation dance too, to show you. I mean, she just looks amazing. She looks perfect. I'm so excited for this to come out too.